Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
It is all about CircuSoul again. We're here with Yoga University. I love the shirt. Kerry Tice joining us today. Welcome back to the show today. How are you?
I'm doing awesome. Thank you. How are you doing?
Great. Please introduce yourself today.
My name's Kerry Tice, and I'm the owner and founder of CircuSoul Yoga, which is a Sarasota-based yoga studio.
Beautiful. And I love the fact for those that are listening, I get to see him on a live Zoom as well. So he's comfortable in the studio on his mat with a beautiful mural behind him. So Kerry, welcome back to the show. Just off the top, I want to point out your website so people could visit it. What is it?
It's circusoul.com, CircuSoul.com. So it's like circus and soul, but they only have one S.
Great. So let's talk. You are a full service yoga company. Explain exactly your company to us. Let's get to know you for a sec.
Absolutely. So we have been in this location for going on 9 years. We have 2 spaces, and one is dedicated. This is the space that's actually dedicated to aerial yoga. And it's something we're going to talk about in a later show. But we also have a studio that's just for hot yoga. So we have a dedicated hot space. Ooh. And we also sell our yoga hammocks all over the world. And I've trained teachers all over the country in our specific specialty, which is aerial yoga. I'm actually a flying trapeze artist. Wow. I live in Sarasota, which is known as the circus capital of the world.
Yep.
So I combined my circus background with the last 10 years of training in yoga, and we created a really unique program that is available all over the world.
This is exciting. And tell us what we're going to be talking about today, Kerry.
So I want to talk to you about yoga and like what it is and kind of like what it isn't. Mm-hmm. So I thought I would, I love to share stories. So it's one of the things I like to do in my classes and bring in some other elements. So I thought I'd share a little story with us to kind of begin. This wise woman was traveling in the mountains, and she came upon a stream, and she was just, enjoying the nature, and she actually saw something shimmery inside of the stream. So she picked it up, and she found this gigantic crystal, huge, beautiful crystal. And she just took it and put it in her bag and continued on her way. And then she was getting ready to get on a train, and she had a fellow traveler that was near her, and the fellow traveler was hungry. So she opened up her bag, didn't think anything of it, was going to share her food with him, because he's hungry. And the guy saw the stone, and his eyes, just popped out of his head, and he's like, whoa, and thought for a moment, like, that's what I want. I want the stone. And she, without hesitation, she handed him the stone. And he was just, so delighted, took off, and she thought she'd never seen him again. Because he realized that stone was worth enough that he was never going to have to worry about anything in the rest of his life. It was like enough for him to live off for his whole life. And so she thought, that was the end of that traveler. And a couple days later, he found her, and he came back, and he says, I realize that this is something that's really quite amazing, but I think that you've got something that's even more powerful, even more precious. And she says, well, what is that? And she said, I'd like to exchange this stone in hopes that you'll share the power that resides in you, that power that without hesitation, you gave me that stone, and that's really what yoga is about.
There's a lot to be said for that. Yeah.
Something deeper, it really does allow us to tap into something that is already deep within each of us. There's a power, there's a strength, there's a love, a joy that resides in the heart. And we so oftentimes, we forget that we're something bigger than this body, and we're more than our mind. So I just thought it was just a beautiful story. At the beginning of my teacher's book, Nishala Joy Devi, every time I open the book, it's like I didn't read that part before, or I missed it. I obviously wasn't quite ready for that. And preparing for the show over the last couple of days, I just was like, well, what is it that I really want to talk about? And so it's always inspiring me. Anytime I open her book and kind of just read a passage, it opens my heart. Sometimes I cry a little bit. Sometimes
Aw.
it really touches me in a way that, like before yoga, I just would have been really callous, really closed, and it wouldn't have affected me. I would have read that story and been like, great, old lady, kind of moved on. But, yoga has really created a path in my life that has opened my heart in a way that I just didn't even realize was possible, and to be able to connect with others. And that's really what it's about, is that we're really more alike than we are different. We have such a fixation on the physical body, on our appearance, on the like, you are a woman and I am a man, but at the root of
No,
it,
it's
we are so more alike than we are
nothing.
different.
Yeah.
And that's yoga is there to kind of make us realize again what we forgot, which is that deep, profound knowledge that we are more alike than we are different, and that we share that commonality. And it's really there to unite us, to bring us together. So many people have no idea what yoga is, right?
Yeah. What exactly is yoga? Because some
Yeah,
people
what
say,
is yoga,
oh,
right?
people,
It's
they
not
bend, they sit on
contortion,
the floor.
right? It's not taking
Exactly.
my leg
They're
and putting it
bending.
down on my head, which,
You
maybe we
can
do that
do.
sometimes with yoga, but that's not yoga. It's also not religious. We're not, worshiping Satan. We're not doing witchcraft. We're not doing any of the a million things that people think we might be doing. What we're really doing is we're getting more in touch with ourselves. So yoga is really a system that allows us to explore ourselves, to have a better, deeper relationships with ourselves. And the asana, the postures, are the means by which we get there. So when we get into a posture, which is also called an asana, which actually means to sit right here like this, right? To sit. And that's what all the yoga is actually getting you ready to do, is to actually be still and be quiet and have that moment, right? To have what we call mindfulness, right? Is being in the present moment, not distracted about the past and not being obsessive about the future, but like being right here, right now, which is not an easy thing to do, right? It is not an easy thing to do for people that already practice, but it is something that's worth it. So our postures, they're called asanas. And the asana, what it's really designed to do is to create sensation. So say we're doing an asana that stretches the hamstrings, right? We might get into a little half stretch and stretch the hamstrings. And you think, well, this pose is about stretching your hamstrings. Well, what it is about is honing your focus. Because when you get into the posture, suddenly the body lights up and it says, whoa, I am feeling sensation. I am feeling my hamstrings. And that allows us to that sensation to become a beacon, and that beacon becomes something that we can focus on. And what that does is it brings us into the present moment. It brings us right here, right now. And that's really all yoga is asking, is that we're spend some time with ourselves. So when we come into a yoga class, we're going to do different postures. We're probably going to get a good workout, probably going to work your abs. We're going to get stretched, right? All of these things, but this is all secondary to the primary, reason that we do yoga is for the mind. It's to prepare you for those very calm, very still moments where if the body is uncomfortable, or the body is in tension, or the body feels like achy, it can be really difficult to focus on the mind. And if the mind is really focused on what's getting ready to happen, or you're doing your estate planning, or you're planning your list at the grocery store, you're not in the present moment. And it is truly a gift to be able to practice this and to be able to be here. And that's what so often I tell my students is be here now, right? Don't try to avoid what you're feeling.
Embrace
Like
it.
embrace that. And that's not an easy thing to do as a human being, because like we do have pain. We do have a lot of stuff that comes in our life. And as they say, pain is inevitable, but suffering is certainly optional.
Got it. Now, what made you start practicing yoga? Would you mind sharing your personal story?
Absolutely. I think it's so important as a yoga instructor, and as anybody who practices yoga, is like kind of figure out like what called me there. For me, I had just finished, I just moved back to Florida. I was living in Boston. I was actually working for Trapeze School, New York. They had a school in Boston, and I was working full time, which was like 44 hours a week. I mean, I was working all the time, long days. And I hadn't even actually heard of yoga before, right? It wasn't a thing. I'd been doing circus for, at that point, probably about almost 10 years. And I was realizing, like, standing around, like my hips started hurting, right? My butt, my back, just like, and I wasn't old then, right? Not that I'm old now, but like I was younger then, and
Yeah.
I wasn't used to having, a lot of those things happen. So I realized, like, oh God, this kind of sucks, right? I'm like feeling achy, not feeling really good in my body. And so I just moved away. I wanted to get away from the job and just start something new and start something fresh. And so my body was achy. And I also was like finding difficulty kind of getting settled in my mind. It was thinking about the future and obsessing about the past, just all these things that our mind it's super good at doing. So I went to the library, Alachua County Library, and got a book by Rodney Yee called 6 Weeks to Balance, right? And I opened up the book and I started doing the reading, and the reading, each little section came with the postures to practice. So that week I practiced those postures and I felt good. And good was probably an understatement. I felt amazing. And immediately, like within that week, I was, sharing with my roommate. I was sharing with her, like we started getting up in the morning and doing that before she went to work. And I invited some friends over and they really dug it. So it was like immediately, I kind of, even though I didn't know anything about yoga then, I really didn't. I knew what I had learned the week before, which was just enough to be able to share with my friends. And so I actually shared with a few people. This was way before live stream was a thing, Zoom was a thing. I actually had set up a service and I was live streaming to my friends. And that was 12 years ago, way before all of this technology was there. And I realized that I love this. I was super passionate about it. And I actually spent the next 2 years just at home practicing. I didn't step foot in a studio for a long time, right? It was this pretty dedicated practice though. Like I was on my mat every day. I was, learning what I could learn. And then finally, after a couple of years of, practicing and loving it and sharing with my friends, I was like, well, I think I should kind of make this official. And that was when I did my first yoga teacher training, which is known as an RYT 200.
Okay.
And just started that immersion into the actual study of yoga. And I haven't been able to stop. I am a yoga teacher trainer now. I share what I have learned with others and teach them how to become yoga instructors. But along the way, it's touched me in ways that I can't even kind of explain. My whole heart is opened, and I find myself being touched by things like just even a commercial, or like a passage from a book, right? And it's so funny because I wouldn't have believed it, like if you had told me that's how I was going to react, I'd be like, no way, that's not happening. So it really has kind of transformed the way that I see things and the way that I see people, because instead of looking at somebody, I'm seeing another heart, and I'm seeing that heart that is really, really like my own. And through that, we see each other. And that's really what we know as the namaste effect is I see you, or
I was
the light
wondering
in
what that
me
means. I don't
sees
know
the
what
light in
namaste
you.
means, but they always say that at the end.
Yeah, we usually bring our hands to our heart, right? Because
And then,
that gesture of the heart is reminding us of that inner nature. But namaste itself means the light in me sees the light in you. Or the way that I teach, if I'm teaching kids, I tell them it's the good in me sees the good in you, because we can be pretty rotten sometimes.
yeah.
And we don't want to, we don't want to focus on the rotten. There's plenty of that. We want to get down to really what brings us together. And it's that heart-centered, that love, that joy. And it really does abide right here. But we forget, we're born with all that knowledge and understanding that we're part of something bigger than ourselves. But as we age and as we get past probably around 2 or 3, we forget about all of that infinite knowledge and that we were part of something bigger. And that can make a kind of a feeling of being lost, of feeling like you don't know where your place is. And I know that that's where so many people, there's kind of like usually about 3 reasons people start yoga. we'll kind of put this one at the back because this one's a little bit
Okay.
more complicated. But people start yoga usually one of two things, and then there's third one we'll talk about in a second, is the first one is that it's their mind. They're looking for mental health. They're looking for self-care. They're looking for something to make them feel less nuts, right? And because we can so
Totally.
easily get so wrapped up in our life that
Nutty
we
all the
start
time.
suffering from anxiety. I actually, when I was in college, my last year of college, I had something happen to me and I started having anxiety. I started having panic attacks. And that kind of led into a pretty deep depression. I didn't have the coping mechanisms. I didn't have the skills. I didn't have yoga then, right? I didn't have that mindfulness and that meditation. So I truly did. I felt really lost. Kind of looking back at that now, I realized, wow, I was searching for this, even though I didn't know I was looking for yoga. When it found me and I found it, I was like, yeah, this is a key and it fits. So many people come in because of their mind, and we meet them where they're at. So if their practice is there, we come in and teach them where they're at. But then there's the other kind of aspect of it is so many people come in from their body, right? They're aching, their back hurts. So many people, right? If you think about sciatica, right? Having that pain kind of down the center of your butt and down the back of your leg. It's super, super common. It's kind of part of the human condition, right?
I've had it. I was, my pregnancy, but there's a lot of things, right? You've even shattered your what bones in your body. I mean, right? You've been hurt before. It's part of your own experience too.
Yeah, I really hurt myself. I haven't stopped doing trapeze. I'm still doing it, and it can take quite a toll. So I actually fractured C7, which is that kind of top bone or the bottom bone in your neck. I actually broke it. It didn't come into two pieces, but it sliced right in half. And I was in a neck brace for eight weeks when that happened. And I can tell you that I found a strength in myself that I didn't know was there. I truly did. It was, of course, it was a devastating loss, right? I thought that like my life is over. I'm certainly not going to be able to do what I love, which is fly. I love to fly on the trapeze. And through the practice of yoga, and of course, I had some really great body work and I had a really great team to help put me together, but I didn't do any surgery. I didn't do any of this, what we call Western medicine type of stuff. I really dug deep. And after the neck brace, I was able to have a complete and full recovery. Back onto the trapeze. I actually started my professional career after that happened.
Oh, wow.
And have traveled with the circus and done all of that. So, personally, firsthand, it's helped me get through that. But I shattered my heel a few years ago. It was about 3 years ago. And I shattered it into like 23 pieces, right? You should have saw the x-ray. It was kind of like, what? That's my foot. And they wanted to do surgery. They wanted to put a pin in it. They wanted to cast it. They wanted to do so many things. And every time they, kind of came up with a plan, I'd be like, well, is there an alternative? Is there another option? And, and there was like, the doctor had another circumstance like this. And he said, okay, well, you could not do this. I could always get surgery later.
Yes.
So I didn't do the surgery. And after I came out of the boot, I didn't cast it. And I got lots of homeopathic remedies, but it was truly through my practice. I started coming back and practicing before my foot was completely ready. And I would literally do my postures without that leg. So my right foot was hurt. So I'd have this back foot where it was just not even on the floor, right? I would do this kind of what I call baby warrior 2. And through that, each week, I would put a little bit more weight on my foot. And it was through that I actually taught my foot. It didn't know how to do this anymore, right? My toes didn't know how to spread anymore.
Wow.
The foot had almost become solidified. And it was through the practice of yoga that I re-taught myself how to walk and was able to build that strength up. So it truly is something that is so close to my heart. What keeps me coming back to yoga, it's the healing power of yoga. That truly is. And that's what keeps bringing me back to teach yoga too, is that
Perfect.
sometimes it's like, okay, you'll get bored or you'll have something happen. But when you have circumstance like that, or you see how what you've taught somebody can really, truly affect their life, that's what touches the heart. And that's what like, it brings you back. And that's what brings me back to the mat day after day and brings me back to, to teaching. And that was really what kind of brought me into opening up a studio, was that, this had worked for me. This has got to work for
so
other
many
people.
All right, with just 5 minutes left, Kerry, I know we want to discuss what the dark night of the soul is, also yoga asana. So just on a time crunch here, just want to make sure we're getting everything in.
You got to reel me in.
For you today. Yes, and then we got to go over those 6 human needs. So go ahead, where do you want to start?
Okay, so I kind of touched on it a little bit. So there's a deeper calling to yoga, right? A lot of times people, I said, they come in because of the physical, they come in because of the mental, but so often what happens is that sometime in our life, and oftentimes it's triggered by trauma, a loss of a loved one, a loss of something in our life, and suddenly our reality isn't what we thought it was. And so we have this like loss of identity, loss of reality. And that is, it scares the crap out of you, right? It's like what yesterday was is no longer here. And so you can't really connect with the way that you used to do things. And so you realize that there's something missing, right? That's one of those ingredients. There's something missing. And that no matter how much you try to rearrange your outside life, new job, new partner, new house, maybe new city, right? I've done probably all of those things, is it doesn't fix it, right? Because the issue, right, is it within. And so we realize that there is a calling to kind of be part of something bigger than yourself. And that's what really calls people to yoga. Of course, on the outside, we're seeing like, they've got other things, but as you start to get deeper in, and I look back on my own journey, I realized that year before I started yoga, I was in the dark night of the soul. I was depressed. I felt like I wasn't part of something bigger than myself. I was searching for something. But of course, I didn't know it was yoga. I didn't know that it was going to be this at all. And so oftentimes things aren't as they seem. Yoga was really disguised as, a stretching or this movement. And what I realized that it's something so vast that it's hard to even explain in words.
Wow. All right. This is exciting. I mean, there's so much passion in your eyes that I could see. You can listen to it. You can hear if you're listening on the radio. There's true passion and happiness within you. And that is really what's emanating through this. So if that's what yoga could do for me and for anyone out there listening, makes me feel good, right? It does.
Absolutely. There's an answer. What people are looking for, we have it. And so many things that people are looking for, yoga can be the answer. And so it's really what I tell people is don't knock it till you try it. And there's a yoga for everyone. So whether or not you've ever practiced before, or you are an Olympic athlete, or you are a couch potato, there is a practice for every single body. And it is truly these deep relaxation and these gentle practices that are the most powerful. And those are the ones that are actually the most accessible, right? Even somebody in a wheelchair, even somebody who can't get up, they could practice these practices and have tremendous benefit in their life.
And before we go, I just want to make sure, do you want to discuss the human needs? You want to run them down and we can go into detail more about them later, or you want to save them?
I know, I think it would be good to kind of put it out there, and then maybe we can finish up a little bit more detail next time. So the 6 human needs, one of them is certainty, right? We kind of want to have a need for safety and stability in our life. Right? The other one is uncertainty. We need a certain amount of like not knowing.
Certain amount of uncertainty. Yes.
Yeah. We need, and the amount of certainty that we are willing to accept in our life is really directly proportional to how happy we can be. It's like, if we can be willing to accept change and have that, we can be happy no matter how much there is in the bank account, or really no matter what's going on in our outside life. I'm not saying it's an easy thing. This is why they call it a practice, right? And I'm still practicing, and I'll still keep practicing for my whole life. So from certainty, it's also the need to be significant. We need to have meaning in our life, and that's really important for people. So certainty, uncertainty, the need to be significant, and love and connection. We need to feel like we're connected to other people. It's such an important thing that we forget that we have things that we need, not just want. We need these things in our life, and growth. We need this constant emotional, intellectual, and spiritual development. Otherwise, we feel like we're missing something, because we truly are.
Yeah.
And then the last one is contribution. It's the need to give beyond yourself, right? And there's so many amazing speakers out there. They talk about this stuff, right? These are universal truths, and it doesn't matter whether it's coming from your yoga instructor or from an inspirational speaker or it's coming from a TED Talk, right? These things can truly, really, and that's what yoga is there for. It's a system to help us live our life better, to be able to systematically explore the mind, the body, and the spirit, and through that, to be able to have levity, to have a strength, and to be able to feel good in our body.
Kerry Tice, CircuSoul.com, CircuSoul. You combine the two. Best form of contact for you, is that okay?
Yes, CircuSoul.com. You can also reach us on our phone number, which is 941-922-9642.
Perfect. Well, thank you for being here with us today. It's a pleasure seeing you, speaking with you. Kerry Tice, have a great day, and I'll say namaste.
Namaste to you. Thank you. And I'll see you next week.
You got it. Thank you. And to everyone else, the same. Stay tuned. More of the show is on the way. Don't go anywhere.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.